So today, I'm so excited to welcome all of our participants tonight to hear from our very special guests, Brooke Wolford, Meghna Somsale, and Harshini Chellasamy. We are very thankful to have our guest speakers here today for this great opportunity. So before we begin this event, I would like to take a short moment to remind you to stick around after the speeches to hear about our future events. Also, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them in our Q&A and we will answer them in between each of our presentations. So now I'll let Richa introduce our first speaker.
Hi, everyone. My name is Risha Narayanan. I am the panel's director for Integrals, and I will be introducing our speakers for the night. So our first speaker today is Harshini Chellasamy. Harshini is a senior at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, where she's studying IT and Management and Cybersecurity. She is the president of the Women in Cybersecurity chapter at her university, and she is the executive brand manager for an entrepreneurial organization at her school called Intinium. Additionally, she is a part-time SOC analyst at a fast-scaling cybersecurity company called Conquest Cyber. Please welcome Harshini.
Hi, Risha. Thanks for the introduction. I'm so happy to be here today, and thank you all for inviting me as well. Just wondering, so can I just share my screen directly, or would you like me to send you?
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Okay, can you all see? Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yep, we're able to see it.
Cool. So yeah, so like Risha said, my name is Harshini. I'm a student. I'm a part-time intern, and I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. So my journey in technology has kind of been a little up and down. So I actually started off wanting to be a programmer, and then I realized that I wasn't the best at it. And I realized that my soft skills are much more strong and decided to pivot my career a little bit, but I can talk a little bit more later about that. And if any of you want to add me on LinkedIn after the presentation, you can go ahead. My LinkedIn is just linkedin.com/Harshini Chella. So first of all, I am pursuing my bachelor's in IT and management and my master's in cyber forensics and security. So this is a 5-year program at my school. And basically, so for the IT and management degree, I'm studying a bunch of different topics like web development, programming, networking, basically anything IT that you can think of. I've taken some type of class in it at a high level. And my master's is in cybersecurity. So in those classes, it's more in depth. So I'm learning a lot about the actual intricate workings of different types of hardware and learning about cybersecurity management and as well as like application security and web security. So some of my favorite classes that I've taken so far were definitely more of the businessy type classes like business innovation and IT entrepreneurship. And I think based on my understanding of IT in general, I've been kind of seeing how I can use my technical understanding and my technical background to go into business. So aside from just being in school, I'm the president of the WISES chapter at Illinois Tech. And WISES is a national organization. They have experienced professionals in cybersecurity and of course students and academics who come together to help encourage and empower other women in cybersecurity. So a lot of what they do includes like mentorship or networking opportunities. They have a job board, they have career fairs, they have a big conference actually that's coming up in March, and they just bring all of these women together, and it was really inspiring for me. Like, this organization is the reason that I am pursuing cybersecurity and the reason that I'm so excited about it. I highly recommend any of you who are interested in learning more about cybersecurity, definitely go check them out and see what kind of resources they have that might work out for you. So aside from the Women in Cyber, I am the executive brand manager of Intinium, and Intinium is a student-led organization that actually just started a year or two ago at my school. So the co-founders are still, really much involved with the organization, and we're growing pretty quickly. We have connections to a lot of different entrepreneurs and investors in the Chicagoland area, and we help our students who are interested in entrepreneurship to connect with those people. In addition, we provide financial resources, mentorship, and just helping students get to know more people in the entrepreneurial space of Chicago. But so within that organization, I kind of do a lot of branding type things. So making sure the website's okay, social media, and of course, helping out with all the events that they have going on. And lastly, as far as work goes in cybersecurity space, I actually had 2 internships this past summer. One of them was this company called Conquest Cyber, and the other one was with Deloitte, which is a consulting firm. And so what I do at Conquest Cyber is I'm a security operations analyst. And what that means is I go and whenever, so we have a bunch of different clients, and they basically say, okay, we want you guys to monitor all of our networks, all of our systems, and make sure nothing bad is happening to our company, and we're not, put at risk for any malicious activities. So I go through different network logs, and I make sure that nothing is out of the ordinary. And Conquest Cyber is a really fast scaling company, and it's basically a startup right now. So I've really been enjoying that more entrepreneurial space and learning about cybersecurity at the same time. And I started off as an intern, and then they took me on part-time during the school year, after that ended. And in addition to that, I also interned at Deloitte in the cybersecurity business unit. So that one was a really short internship though. So it was mostly just learning about what Deloitte has to offer us and learning about what they do as a whole organization. So my career goals overall, I am super, super excited about cybersecurity. I love cybersecurity so much. And my overall goal is to share my knowledge of the industry and privacy techniques and cybersecurity techniques that individuals can use to help protect themselves. I hope to one day be someone who can advise and help others protect their companies as well, in addition to personal cybersecurity. So something I've been considering, ideally, I want to go into consulting. I hope that after I get a really good understanding of what's going on in the industry, then I can go into cybersecurity marketing. And then I want to go into actual business. And a lot of what I've been doing during college is making really good connections with other students who maybe could be my future business partners. And in addition to all of this, I'm still looking for jobs. I'm graduating in May 2021. So I've been applying for a lot of consulting positions because that's the next step for me. That's something I really am excited to do. And that's all I have for you guys. So I'll just go to the first slide. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Harshini. So like Anvisha said before, we will take questions once all the speakers are done talking. Okay. And now I will introduce our next speaker for the event. So our next speaker is Brooke Wolford. She is a PhD candidate in the University of Michigan Department of Computational Medicine and Bioinformatics and a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellow. Originally from North Carolina, she arrived at Michigan after receiving her BS in Quantitative Biology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a subsequent bachelorette program at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. Her current research is in identifying new genetic risk factors for cardiovascular diseases and using these findings to inform preventative medicine. Please welcome Brooke.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here and share with you a little bit about my journey and my research. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have way too many PowerPoints open at the moment, so let's see if I can pick the right one. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so if you want to follow me on Twitter or email me, and then this is my GitHub link where I have a lot of my code from my research. Please feel free to connect with me. So I'm going to talk today about my journey through the interface of bioinformatics, genetics, and precision medicine. So I, like Risha mentioned, I'm in the Department of Computational Medicine and Bioinformatics. There's a lot of different names for my field, but basically it's the combination of like computer science, statistics, and biology all together. So in this little graphic, I'm just showing some of the fields that are sort of all feed into bioinformatics. It's a really diverse research program at the University of Michigan. There's people in my department doing things completely different from what I do. But I work purely computationally on my computer, and I came into this field through my love of biology and genetics. So I'm going to tell you a little bit sort of about that. So I'm from a small town in North Carolina, and I'm actually in North Carolina now. When the pandemic happened, we're working remotely indefinitely. So I'm not actually in Ann Arbor anymore. But I have always been interested in genetics. A genetic disease runs in my family. And so I was always really keen to understand more about that. So I really started reading more about genetics. Like in the 8th grade, I did this project on gene therapy. But I went to a really small town that didn't have a lot of science opportunities. So North Carolina actually has a magnet high school called the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics. And you live there and do kind of specialized science and math centric work for your junior and senior years of high school. So I did that, graduated in 2009. And this is just some pictures of the campus. This was really influential for me because I actually got to take genetics classes in high school and actually started to do research. So we had a research experience course where they allowed us to do research with professors at the nearby universities. So the school was really close to the University of Chapel Hill and Duke. And so I got to do research with a professor at the University of North Carolina. And that was with the Jones Lab. So we studied evolutionary genetics. So this picture here of a fruit fly, this is a genetic mutant fruit fly that I made by exposing fruit flies to like a chemical mutagen. And then I bred them for a while. And in between the black stripes, it should be a white stripe, but this is a mutant that doesn't have the stripes. So we were researching to try to figure out what genetic change had occurred to make this fly have stripes where other fruit flies didn't have stripes. And that was just to better understand. It seems like a really question, like why do we care if fruit flies have stripes? But it helps us learn more about how animals evolve and adapt and how our genome changes over time. So I was doing really like wet lab work at this point. I was doing PCR, if you've ever heard of that, like at the bench with reagents, and I was working with the fruit flies. But we sequenced the fruit fly genome. And so I started kind of playing with computational work around this point because we wanted to assemble the genome so we knew like what order all of the letters went into. And I actually transitioned then from a biology degree to a quantitative biology degree. And there were a couple options at my school. It was a brand new major. I was the first graduating class with that major. But you could take more like mathematical modeling classes, or you could take computer programming. But that was really important for me. I hadn't coded at all until I was like, I guess it was my sophomore year. So I was 19 years old and I had never done any computer programming. And I found out that I really enjoyed it a lot. So here's just some pictures of UNC Chapel Hill. I love this place. So I graduated in 2013, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure if my next step was going to be a PhD program. I was also interested in genetic counseling. And I actually applied for a program through the National Institutes of Health, which is in Bethesda, Maryland. And it is called the NIH Post-Bac Intramural Research Training Award. And there's about 2,000 post-bacs every year, and they do research full-time at the NIH. And it's usually for 1 or 2 years. And most people are going to go on to an MD program or a PhD program. So I started working in this lab. It's the Collins Lab at the NIH, and we studied a lot of different things, but one of the things that we studied was type 2 diabetes. And Francis Collins, if you recognize his name, he was the head of the Human Genome Project. So he was a wonderful mentor, and I learned a lot. And was like, okay, I'm going to go do my PhD. This is full-time science, is like definitely what I want to do, and especially in like the interface of genetics and programming, computational biology. So yeah, did 2 years of research right outside of Washington, D.C. This is the National Institutes of Health. If you haven't heard of it, it's our nation's largest biomedical research institute. So there's actually a ton of doctors and PhDs that work on clinical research here and basic biology research. But then they also fund a ton of grants like at the different universities. So then I applied to a lot of different PhD programs, and I made the choice to go to the University of Michigan. Like I mentioned, we studied type 2 diabetes in the Collins Lab, and actually had interacted with a lot of scientists at the University of Michigan who had collaborated with Francis for a long time. So I was able to join a lab that did things sort of similar to what I was used to doing, but I would also get to try some new things. And I'm actually jointly mentored by doctors Kristen Willer, who's here, and Mike Banke, who's not in this picture. And so I now work kind of the interface of cardiovascular disease genetics and how to understand people's genetic code and help hopefully find treatments. So I have sort of a really high level, like what DNA is, all the way through to like a detail of what I do that I will try to walk through kind of quickly. I didn't want to assume anything about anyone's background. So like the DNA is in your chromosomes and it lives in the nucleus of your cell, and it has the code for life. It tells our bodies how to function and makes all the proteins that we need. It has the code for making the proteins that we need. So when we went to study it, we do sample collection. We run the DNA from blood through a genotyping array. And it's literally like this little chip that you just like put all the chemicals over. And then what we get at the end is all of people's genotypes that are in this digital format. So it's really small, but it's like chromosome 1, and then it has the position, and then it has like what the letters are there. And so because that's a ton of data, we have to use computers to really sift through all of that. And kind of the object lesson of this I like to give, if you printed out your genome on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so like this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet. If you printed out your genome, all 3 billion letters, it would stack up to 424 feet, which is taller than the Statue of Liberty. And that's one person's genome printed out. So that's why we have to use computers. And then also a lot of the stuff we work in, we have data on a lot of people. So right now, the United States government is trying to get genotype information on 1 million people and then link that with their health records so we can do health research. I regularly work with a data set that has 70,000 people. So lots of data to manage. And I use Python and R primarily to code, and I interact with high throughput computing environments to get a lot of my code to run correctly. So I'll just kind of quickly go through the cohort that I mentioned, that we have 70,000 people. It comes from a small county in Norway, and they have health records because they have nationalized healthcare. They have this really great healthcare resource. So we know like who got sick when, and so we can look over a long period of time. So this is a really unique data set. And we performed this method called Genome-Wide Association study. So let me go back to this. We basically divide the cohort into who is sick and who is not, so cases and controls, and this could be for anything. So let's talk about heart attack, for example. And we see that in this situation, the 2 letters at this one place in the genome are T and C. And the people in orange have T and the people in blue have C. So if you look between cases and controls, it's pretty like equally distributed. On the other hand, at a different area in the genome, there's either an option to have an A or to have a G. And in this situation, all of the cases pretty much, except for this one woman, they all have the G. And then the controls tend to have A. So we would see this pattern and we would say that this SNP, particularly the letter G, is associated with that disease. And so that helps us understand places in the genome that confer risk for disease. And we can basically add all those up. So this is just one place in the genome, but you can add up maybe like 20 million places in the genome where variation happens. And then you can, this is called a genome-wide association study when you look genome-wide. And here, anything that comes along above this line is something that's known to be associated with a heart attack. So we know all these different areas in the genome are associated with having a heart attack. And we do this for all sorts of traits. And then we can add up a score called a genetic risk score that adds up all of those risk alleles over your genome. And here I'm just showing the score. It's slightly shifted, but if you also have a family history of disease, which is in blue, the distribution of the score is a little shifted higher. So that makes sense. If you had a family history of a heart attack, you also might be more likely to have inherited those genetic risk factors for a heart attack. And the real important part of this is, I'm just going to focus on this. So if we take that score and we split it up on the x-axis here, these people have the highest score. And on the y-axis is the prevalence of heart disease. So if you have a higher score, the prevalence of heart disease is about 15% of that group. So the people that fall into this higher score category, they might be a good candidate for going on a medicine like a statin. And that can lower people's cholesterol values. And then that can ultimately prevent heart attacks. So this is sort of like, we take the DNA, we get it in a cohort of people, we look for patterns, and then we calculate this risk score. And ultimately we can go back to the people and say, hey, you might really consider taking this medicine. And people are doing this across a bunch of different traits. And this is what my research field is. And I use code to do all of this. So yeah, looking forward to answering y'all's questions, and that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Brooke. That was wonderful. So I will now be introducing our last speaker for the night, Meghna Somsale. So Meghna graduated from the University of Michigan College of Engineering as a computer science major in 2019. She is now pursuing management consulting in New York, but currently, because of coronavirus, she is quarantining in Michigan.
Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen. Give me a second here. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey, but then also get you all to maybe consider how you could see yourselves using computer science in the future. So a little bit about me. My name is Meghna. I recently graduated from the University of Michigan from the College of Engineering as a computer science major. And I was kind of involved in a lot. I had started off my career, when I was in high school, a senior. I was literally choosing between going into dentistry, going into medicine, and going into engineering. And none of those things are really where I really ended up, but I've used a lot of those things along the way to kind of help me throughout my journey in college. So, so I was a computer science major. I think, I was really intimidated by it when I first started. I wasn't really sure what I was really going to be doing there. I thought I was going to do like environmental engineering, or I thought I was going to do mechanical engineering, and none of those things really made sense to me. And I had learned from a couple people that computer science was really a great degree to start off with because you can do so much with it. Brooke was talking about how she was doing with her research, and there's so many applications of it, and I think that's what kind of really got me interested to begin with. So I can talk a little bit about my journey through undergrad. Freshman year, I had interned at like an energy company. I didn't really feel like computer science was used there. I interned at a bank. That wasn't really great, but I finally interned at a consulting firm, and I had a really great experience. I learned a ton about not only how to solve problems at a massive scale for businesses, but also I felt like I really was able to improve my ability to like read data and understand data. And I would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for my fundamentals in computer science. I think people often think that if you're a coder or if you're a computer science major, it's just you literally are debugging or you're writing in C++ languages, not knowing anything. And honestly, it's more than that. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of problem solving, and it's a structured way of problem solving. And I think that's why computer science is a really great place to start. I was involved in a couple things on campus. I kind of co-founded, was also part of this organization called CS Kickstart, which is a program right before called like freshman year begins for high schoolers with no prior customer service. That's the project I'm working on right now, computer science experience. So I will talk about that a little bit later, but there's something there. I also was involved in a lot of research during my sophomore and junior years. You can see there's a little orange sticker at the bottom for Bitcoin. So one of the research projects I was working on was actually looking at people who would manipulate the market to make more money off of buying and selling Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Really cool project, really fast, but it was a really rewarding experience and I learned a ton. I wanted to take this conversation to a different place about diversity in computer science, and I think what intimidated me to start, and hopefully that'll persuade some of you to either choose this going forward or consider why it would be helpful in your careers. I think when you start off, joining computer science is really intimidating. I remember, and it's called the imposter syndrome. It's a real thing, right? You feel like you don't know enough. And as a female or as a minority, you're often the only person in the room who's a female or in a group project, and it's hard to voice your opinions. And so imposter syndrome is a real thing. I remember freshman year when I was starting off to be a computer scientist, I used to think like I thought Python was a snake. I did not know Python was like a coding language. So I'm sure if you guys are in this organization now, you already are way like steps ahead of me. So what really is computer science? Computer science is not about programming. Like I said, it's a way you think, it's a way to problem solve, and it's a systematic way to make life easier for you. And computer science kind of enables that. It's not a study of computation. It looks at the problem. It looks at different ways to represent the problem, and those ways you represent it are, you solve them by algorithms, and then you try to implement those algorithms. And you kind of break it down and you get all these different crazy terminologies that you hear like ML, machine learning, artificial intelligence, AI, but it really all breaks down into the concept that I'm talking about here. So you have these different ways to look at problems, and you can look at problems from a hardware perspective, which is actually working with the computer tangibly. Maybe what you see is what you can think about it like that. You may also think of it as machine learning, natural language processing, similar to you probably lesser known concepts, but are definitely used in industry. So we can go into a little bit about this, but ultimately, a computer is a machine that can solve a bunch of different problems for you, and you give it a set of instructions, and that's really where computer science comes in. And it's made up of ones and zeros, and that's where you really see all of these crazy, like the codes start coming in, and that's where you see those intimidating, maybe movies where you see people like hacking the interface or hacking the mainframe. It's really just a bunch of languages that come together. I wanted to hop on to a different presentation on what diversity looks like and why it's important for us to bring ourselves and join computer science. And I'm talking about this, I know it's not a ton about my journey, but it indirectly is one of the reasons I'm in computer science, is because I felt like I wanted to be a part of solving this problem. So when you look at, all these big tech companies, what do you guys all see here? It's pretty much just males, right? Like it's males starting like crazy tech companies, really big, really great, but there are some huge issues with computer science and the Silicon Valley in general: race, socioeconomic status, gender diversity, age, clothing, body type, hobbies. I mean, they all look the same. But today we want to focus on gender. So let's kind of social science it, right? First, we want to think about the problem. Is there really a problem? I don't know. Well, since the 80s, the proportion of women in computer science has declined sharply. And we want to think about why that is, right? So what happened? I'm not sure if you guys are able to unmute yourselves, but what do you see in this, in this picture?
Attendees can't unmute themselves, but I'll answer since
Oh, no.
I can only see like just a boy playing with the computer. It was
Yeah.
mainly boys in the advertisement.
Exactly. Sorry, I didn't know you guys weren't able to talk, but I'm hopefully I'm sure the presentation will still be the same. But anyways, yeah, you see your dad kind of encouraging the little boy to work on a machine, and that's kind of the face that we see. Even if you look at this picture, a dad sitting with his two sons in front of a computer, that's what we think computer science is. Even in this picture, okay, there's a female now, but the female isn't even touching the machine. She's not even looking at the machine. She's looking somewhere else. And so, and another example, Dad, can I use the IBM computer tonight? Like, all these examples are males, and there's so many different, so that's one of the reasons probably why is the way women were presented, or men were presented in advertisements that kind of prevented other genders from exploring computer science. For example, at Stanford, there are 493 CS students. So 70% of their computer science students were male, and only 30% were female, which is a crazy amount. Even if you look at Google's in 2015, 18% of Google's tech employees were women, and 16% of Facebook's tech employees were women. That's a ridiculous number, you guys. That means basically 1 in every 10 people, a little bit more than that, but 1 in every 10 people is female, which is crazy. And at Michigan, it's even lower. So the problem starts long before college, I think, and you guys are helping solve the problem, which is really great. But a lot of girls show a lot of interest in computer science early on, and as you get into college, that interest sort of has waned. And a lot of places aren't able to offer AP classes before for students to explore this. And we're really, I'm not sure what schools you guys all go to, but I know PSEP has some for us to use. But anyways, let me skip to a presentation that is here. Okay, so I wanted to show this slide. Not that computer science is about money, but it's to show you that it's pretty lucrative to go into this area. The breakdown, if you look at computer science, it's one of the areas, let me see if I can move my cursor, but it's the area that usually makes the most amount of money compared to any other engineering. So it's a really lucrative area to get to. And there's so many cool places you can take your career. You can work at any of the big, social media companies, Facebook, Instagram. You can work on autonomous vehicles. You can design mobile apps and do so many other things. The opportunities are endless. Without the representation of women and other genders in computer science, we will lose our financial opportunities and the voice in shaping the future. So I want to go back and talk a little bit more about myself. And you might be thinking, okay, it's a little hypocritical. You studied computer science and now you're going into business. But I think that goes to show that in going into business, it's not that I didn't like computer science or I like computer science. It was that computer science really opens a lot of doors for you. And for me, it opened a door in management consulting. And ultimately technology is used everywhere, and consulting is one of those places, but you look at problems differently. I would never have traded all the countless hours of debugging or doing any crazy things for where my career is at now. But hopefully this has kind of incentivized you to explore computer science. I just want you to realize that computer science doesn't mean you only go into working at Google or Facebook. You can go into anywhere, do cool, amazing research, work in medicine, work in healthcare. But it's important to have that fundamental computer science knowledge to be able to do so, because the future is technology. And this is not the first time you've all heard that. So hopefully this was a little bit informative. I know it wasn't a ton about my career, but I wanted to persuade you all into thinking about what you can do with computer science.
Thank you, Meghana. So I would just like to once again thank all of the speakers. We really did learn a lot about cybersecurity from Harshini and more about the genome. I know some of my friends are actually interested in going into biomed, so that was really helpful. And thank you, Meghana, for especially talking about how there is a gender disparity when it comes to computer science, and for telling us more about it.
Yeah, I really loved all of your presentations. They were all so unique and interesting. So right now, I think we should move on to the Q&A portion of our webinar. So let's start with a question for Harshini. Do you have any advice for students looking for internships?
So I never had a internship in high school, but once I got to college, I really started investing a lot more in myself. I would say in high school, I wasn't the best student. I was always kind of like, oh, whatever, it's just school. But I think the number one way, the reason I was able to get not only the 2 internships I mentioned to you all, but I think I had a total of 5 on my resume, was basically just getting involved and meeting people. By getting involved, I would say participate in events like this, make yourself known to more students, make yourself participate. Like if you join an organization, don't just go to the events. Try to help the people on the team and really go in and say, hey, how can I help you guys? Because at the end of the day, a lot of employers are looking for someone who is really going to go the extra mile and help out the team. And the last thing about meeting new people, if you have the opportunity to go to a career fair or some type of conference, there you can meet a lot of recruiters or managers and get to know them. And then in the future, if you're looking to get a job like in some field and you just happen to know this person, like it's easier, and you'll probably find some work after that.
If I can maybe add to that.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is really helpful, and I think Harshini really talked about, yes, you have to go to all these career fairs, you have to go to and present yourself and join these organizations. But make sure you're building meaningful relationships. I think recruiting is always going to be there in terms of finding new internships, finding jobs, but the most successful relationships that you build are the ones with people where you've connected with them from deeper than just like a surface level conversation. And I think you do that by being passionate about the work that you're interested in. So start a project that you really like or you want to learn more about, and be able to talk about that project. So when you have to talk about it to a recruiter or talk about it with other people, people can see the passion in your eyes, and you can spark like genuine conversations from that. Also make sure your resume is really solid, right? Like be able to talk about the experiences on your resume. I know a lot of people use crazy vocabulary, like built like X, Y, and Z module for like a 1, 2, 3 project. Like that doesn't mean anything. You have to really be able to describe that experience, back it up, and present yourself successfully on a resume. And that, I think that's a really great way for you to be successful.
All right, we can then move on to another general question just for everyone. So if you guys were to give any advice to your college freshman self, what would it be?
I know mine. I was terrified to take math in undergrad. I was really scared I was going to blow my GPA by like failing some math class. So I took like only the bare minimum that I needed, but I'm actually, while I'm getting my PhD, I'm also getting a master's in statistics. And I think that's going to make me a lot more marketable, but it was so hard to jump back into higher level math because I haven't really done much of it in undergrad. So I would have gone back and found my way with some more math, because I think that's pretty complementary for what I want to do. It's complementary to the computer science.
I would say for me, it would probably be don't be afraid to fail. And I think that's really counterintuitive of what we're thought of, right? Like we have to have this high GPA, we have to have everything put together, and do have that, but don't be afraid to fail in the sense of don't be afraid to explore things that you didn't know before, and take a risk on yourself, right? Like Brooke was mentioning, like maybe you have to take that math class that you really didn't want to, but you have to, and you have to know how to do it. At University of Michigan, there are 2 EECS classes. Even if they're optional, take them and learn how to do it, because you never know what doors might open for you afterwards. And if there's a project or a startup that you want to do or think about, like the time is now when you have all these resources. Don't worry about what's next, or what if I fail? Like, the idea is you put time in and you gain some experiences to learn from and to grow from. And don't be status quo. Don't do everything that everybody else is doing, right? Like, if somebody's joining like a consulting group, or if someone's joining like some club or a sorority or fraternity, like don't do that too. Like, do what you're really interested in. I think you'll go far.
And just to add on to what Meghna was saying earlier about making really meaningful connections, something that I wish I had done freshman year is get to know more of my professors. I think towards the end of my schooling, like maybe my junior and senior year, I really developed meaningful relationships with them, and that has helped me so much. They're kind of like just my cheerleaders for the most part. Like, I feel like my professors really care about me, and that's because I took the time to get to know them. In addition to that, like I said, in high school, I didn't do so hot, and I think going to college, and I was really afraid of joining organizations for some reason. I was like really like, oh, that's lame. Like, I'm not going to do that. But I really wish that I did. The people that you meet through them are going to be your friends forever, probably.
Well, I have another general question for everyone. This is kind of an interview-esque question, but where do you guys see yourself, and like what do you guys see yourself doing in 5 years?
I don't know. I think I joke with my colleagues that I have this like 5-year plan. I have this like 10-year plan on my wall, because I don't know, and it changes every single day. I would like to maybe get a master's. I would like to try to explore different industries, maybe private equity, more consulting, maybe go into industry. I don't know yet. So I think there's just so many places to go. I don't know.
I think the path that I'm on is a little bit more, so there's definitely tons of diversity. Like, once I get my PhD, I can do lots of things. The traditional path is more straightforward of like, you get your PhD, you do a postdoc, which is like 3 to 5 years of like more training. And then you apply for like an independent faculty job where you run your own lab and ask your own research questions. That's really competitive to get. So if you don't do that, you might end up working as a staff scientist in an academic lab, helping a lab do research. Like, you're not really responsible for bringing in the grants. More so in my bioinformatics world, people will go work for like 23andMe or Ancestry DNA or a pharma company that does research. So I would love to be a professor and end up having my own lab, but that is like a pretty competitive path. So if everything works out right, in 5 years, I will be like applying for grants and applying for jobs to have my own lab. But otherwise, I really don't know. Like, I could end up going to industry, or I could end up pivoting and working as a research scientist in some other capacity.
I hope you get to become a professor. That would be really cool. But my 5-year plan as of right now, because I am very multi-passionate, you could say, I really like cybersecurity. Obviously, I think it's really important that, we're keeping safe on the internet at the end of the day. However, I'm not super into the technical side. I'm really a fan of the cybersecurity awareness. So what I'm thinking is, after I graduate, I can maybe get a consulting job and learn more about the technical side and figure out from there which direction I want to go. As of right now, I'm really interested in marketing for a cybersecurity company. And then I'm planning to, after getting a decent amount of experience in cybersecurity marketing, maybe pivot to more of the business side and maybe sales even.
So our next question is directed to Brooke. It's asking, so do you save all of the genome for everyone, or do you just look for certain parts of the DNA to study for each certain disease?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For the most part, we go ahead and like read all the genome because we already have it. There's certain, we call them assays, where you would specifically only look at the genes and not, like, we have the genes and then the kind of, it used to be called junk DNA, but it's actually pretty important. But we could just focus on the genes if we wanted. The picture of the chip that I showed, it has probes on it that match certain places. And what we do is match places across the whole genome. But if you were like super interested in just one area, you could just put probes that pull down that area. But it's kind of a waste to do that when you already can just do it all.
So our next question, I think it was just directed towards Meghna because she did talk about imposter syndrome, but everyone else can answer it too. It's asking, what tips do you have for battling imposter syndrome, especially when you're trying to make your voice heard?
It's a great question. The biggest advocate for you is yourself, right? Nobody's going to hear what you have to say other than you. And it's hard. Like the imposter syndrome to me is a very psychological thing, right? Like you tell yourself that you can't do something and then you pretty much feel like you just can't do anything after that. I'm still battling it, right? Like in my job, I'm surrounded by such talented people and I still struggle with it. But I think the biggest thing you can do is, and it sounds so easy, but it's so difficult, but it's to speak up, right? Like even if you feel like you don't belong or you feel like you can't do it, like take the extra hours to go to office hours, or take the extra time to go to office hours, like take the extra time to go to professors, build whatever skills you need to feel like you do belong and feel like you are supposed to be there. I think fundamentally, nobody belongs or nobody doesn't belong to computer science. You can choose anything you want to do, and it's not even computer science, but anything you want to do, you choose to be there, you choose not to be there. Don't let other people tell you that you should not be pursuing something that you're interested in. And so whenever you're battling that, think of ways to make yourself feel more confident. For me, it was speaking up more. It was asking my questions when I had doubts, not worrying what, the three guys behind me were going to say about me asking a silly question. If I wanted to know it, I wanted to ask that question. So there's a lot of different, ways to approach it. And I think it differs for every person, but I'm curious what Brooke and Harshini think.
Yeah, I have really bad imposter syndrome, and I've heard some of the most accomplished, and I think a lot of times accomplished women that have it, and I think it's something you're constantly working on. I really like the idea of like finding ways to build your own confidence. One thing that I do for that is I keep a folder on my desktop, and like if I get a nice email that said like something I did right, or like when I got my grad school acceptance emails, like I literally have that and I flip through it and I encourage myself of like, look at all you've done and like you belong, you deserve, you belong. And then like if you're, especially in the context of like speaking up, if you're about to go into a meeting where you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to be intimidated, like go read that before that meeting and like give yourself a little pep talk.
So I definitely agree with both of you. Something I do every morning, or at least a couple of times a week, is I write in a journal and I say, like, I basically just hype myself up. I'm like, you know what, you're the best, like, go and do this, go finish your homework, you can do it, like stuff like that. And it's really helpful because like Meghna said, like at the end of the day, all you have is yourself. And if you're not hyping yourself up, no one else will.
So the next question is actually directed towards Harshini. So is there a specific type of entrepreneurship that you plan to do, or in general, on what scale do you want this entrepreneurship to expand to?
So like I said, I don't know exactly all of the technical aspects of cybersecurity that I wish I knew. So I always knew that I want to go into business because my family is a family of business people. And like since a young age, I've always been exposed to that. So I don't know exactly which direction I want to go in, but I know that my overall goal is to help bring awareness to the average person about what is going on. Why do they need to care about cybersecurity? In terms of like how I want to scale and all of that stuff, like I'm not even there yet, honestly. Like this is just something that I aspire to do, one day, like once I get the knowledge and the confidence to pursue it and I find a great team to work with, then it's something that maybe we can talk about in the future.
All right, so the next question is kind of a long one, but it's directed towards everyone. In school, people don't tend to acknowledge the changing careers of people. All of you mentioned pivoting careers and changing interests. What advice do you have to people who feel nervous about selecting the wrong thing to major in, or like regretting what they studied later?
I can go ahead and start with this one. I actually changed my major like 4 or 5 times and I transferred schools. So I would just say if you want to switch or if you don't like what you choose, just switch. The worst that you can do is, have to take a couple extra classes. But at the end of the day, like if you find yourself passionate about something and it's better than what you're doing right now, just go for it, because don't ever waste your time being unhappy when you could be happy and doing something you like. Um, I would say, because like all of you guys are high schoolers, you're probably not going to know exactly what to do, and it's totally fine to be nervous because I'm just assuming that a lot of you haven't gone into like a real workplace and saw like what's happening there. Um, so it's like you can feel nervous about it, but just know that you can always change your mind, and it's totally good and awesome if you do.
Yeah, I would say I think there are two ways I look at this question. So one is what can you do as a high schooler, and then the second aspect is what can you do, like what do you think, like when you try to major in something, what do you think about in college? I'll take it from the high school perspective, and I have to thank my mom for this, right? It's the importance of shadowing. I used to play it off so much. I was like, this is not worth it. Like, why do I have to go to this dentist? But after I shadowed the dentist and after I shadowed like a doctor, I realized it wasn't for me. And I think it takes you to really live a day in the life of one of these people to understand if it's for you or if it's not for you. And granted, it's hard to shadow someone in business. It might be hard to shadow someone, in other areas, but, try to narrow your options down a little bit through that. Like, could you see a lifestyle? Could you see yourself helping people, but maybe like dealing with open wounds? Like, I don't think I could do that. The second aspect of this is, what do you do in college when you're thinking about a major? And I think people make it sound like you really have your freshman year to decide. The hard truth is, when you're trying to do some majors, you don't have a lot of time if you want to graduate on time without paying extra money for your tuition. You have to start thinking about these questions your senior year of high school and your first semester of freshman year, to plan out your course accordingly. And I think you have to ask yourself two questions. One, are you a generalist or are you a specialist? A specialist is someone who finds one area and they're like, wow, I love this. Like, I love science, or I love robotics, and that's what I'm going to do. A specialist is someone who's like, honestly, I can find joy in anything I do. And I will be good at it through practice. I found myself being more generalist. And so I had to find something like computer science and business later on to help me kind of open those doors and think of them as exit opportunities, right? Like, with business, I know there's so many other areas I can go with. And with computer science, there's so many areas I can explore. I'm not sure if I would have felt the same way as a doctor, right? Like, but I don't know medicine that well. But I just knew for who I was, that's how I had to evaluate choosing my major, but also, thinking about exit opportunities in the future. But in high school, my biggest piece of advice: shadow, shadow, shadow. Like, find who you can shadow, find mentors for yourselves to learn what if you like something or don't like something.
Yeah, I'll just add really quickly to that I know when I was picking my courses in undergrad, I was always trying to be a little cognizant of like, I'm not going to pigeonhole myself in just yet. Like, I might take my classes now that would maybe satisfy a couple majors. So in case I change my mind, there were some things that I like after my sophomore year, like I couldn't apply to the biostats program because I hadn't done the prereqs or whatever. So, that you have to consider that. But I was always trying to be like, what would not close any doors yet? Like, I don't want to close any doors yet, which took some planning and thinking. And then I feel like we all have kind of demonstrated that something in technology, computer science, or whatever, the world is your oyster afterwards. So like, even if your major isn't like the perfect major, you will find open doors, I think, with like the skills that you learn, hopefully, in the field.
So we actually do have some middle schoolers here today too. So someone asked, if I wanted to get started with computer science, what would be the first step?
There's so many places to start your first step. You could go to Khan Academy. You could go to, depending on your age, I know they have like You could try CS courses, maybe even like find free online courses on Coursera or anything. Those might be a little bit more high level, but my dad was working on this the other day, but you could go to Costco and find a simple way to like program anything. Go buy an Arduino online. For $50, you can get an entire hardware kit and learn how to make like lights blink, like red and like blink and change different colors. So it's never too late to start. I would say though, quick plug before we end here, if you're in high school and you're applying to the University of Michigan and you're a senior, program that I was talking about before is called CS Kickstart. So even if you have a little bit of CS experience, it's fine. But if you really don't have any, join our program. It's 1 week. It's totally free. We connect you with leaders in the industry, and we help you kind of get your, it's kind of like training wheels before you start into computer science or any major, of just learning how computer science works, what's a for loop, what's a while loop, just basic things. So you're not intimidated when you start. But otherwise, the other places I listed are great to start as well.
I would plug Girls Who Code. That's the organization that I've been involved with that teaches, we teach high schoolers, but there's other Girls Who Code clubs that teach middle schoolers as well. And it's free, and that's how I know Risha.
All right, for the next question, it's again directed towards Harshini. What are some resources you suggest for students interested in learning more about cybersecurity?
So personally, I started off reading about news articles, cybersecurity related news articles. I can put it in the chat. There's this website called ZDNet, and they have a lot of cybersecurity news. And on Twitter, I follow a bunch of cybersecurity professionals on Twitter, so they're always talking about X, Y, and Z, anything cybersecurity related. And that just like helps to get like that first initial awareness of like what is going on, like why is this such a big deal? I think aside from that, if you're looking into more career type things, there's this website called cyberseek.org. And that pretty much gives you a general overview of what type of careers are available in the cybersecurity industry, where they are, how much they pay, and what different paths you can take. There's also CompTIA. That's not really like for awareness, but CompTIA has like certifications. And when you take a certification exam, you're given the certificate saying, okay, you know what you're talking about in the specific sector of like IT, for example. So I'm studying right now for the Security Plus exam. I'll put that in the chat as well. But basically, like if you study for this exam, like you will have a really good, even entry level or intermediate understanding of cybersecurity. So just right off the bat, I would say, basically look for news articles, understand what type of careers are out there, and then when you're really ready to go get more involved, start studying these different subjects.
All right, so last question for tonight. What is some advice you would give to high schoolers who are interested in 2 different fields and can't decide which one?
First piece of advice, shadow. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, you should shadow. I think it's not really networking, but also just like talking to other people. I know, so now I'm sitting on the other side of recruiting calls, and basically that's where sophomores, juniors applying to internships or full-time positions are asking, what do you do every day, to full-time employees. And I remember doing that for consulting. I remember doing that for computer science. I was trying to be a project manager or product manager too. So I would call people, and I would find them on LinkedIn, or I would find them through these organizations that I was involved in, and I'd reach out to them and be like, hey, like if it was a recruiter, I'd be like, do you know anyone else that's a product manager that could, talk more about their experiences? Basically, I would talk to these different people, and I would I would have this journal where I would have, the person I talked with, and then the key takeaways I had from that conversation. And that's how I really narrowed down what I was interested in, and etc. But if you're sailing on 2 boats, that you're interested in 2 things or multiple things, that's really good, right? Like that's where you should really combine your interests to form one thing, because nothing really is just business, or nothing is really just technology. Everything's combined together. So talk to different people who kind of sit at those intersections to think about what careers exist for you, or what you could do, like maybe in research, maybe you could get PhD, who knows. But that's what I would do.
Do you mind repeating the question, please?
Yeah, just a sec, let me pull it up. It was, what advice do you have for high schoolers who are looking into 2 different fields and can't decide which one?
Yes, I would just echo, when I was at the NIH, I was still deciding between a PhD in something and then genetic counseling. And I did a lot of phone interviews. I had also shadowed a genetic counselor. So that really helped me make my decision.
So unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much to all of our guest speakers for their helpful information, and thank you to all of these students for attending the seminar today. Throughout the year, Integrals Detroit hosts a variety of different contests and informational seminars. Some of our upcoming events include another informational seminar like this on October 20th, and a fall math competition for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and for female and non-binary students. So check out our website for more information, and I'll send the link to both a website and a feedback poll, which will be emailed to every attendee so we can learn more about how we should run our webinars for future sessions. So thank you so much to all of us, to all of the speakers and all of the attendees today. I would just like to take a quick picture of everyone before we leave. So smile. All right, that's good. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All the speakers, we really appreciated it, and I know we all learned a lot about STEM and all the different fields. We're so excited, and as Anwisha said, we have our next event on October 20th. It's super exciting. We actually have industry leaders at Domino's coming to speak. So please sign up, and thank you.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.